Alright friends, it's Good Music Fan, the Rabid Cyclist coming at you. In our last video we talked about cycle touring, what is it, and some of the things that, kind of go along with it. Well, this episode here is going to be devoted to some of the things you may want to take with you. I want to start out first with a safety concern that my beloved wife brought up for me. If you're going anywhere and in this modern age, you usually carry some sort of ID with you. But there were a few stories over the last I think 6 years where the cyclist was injured and it took him a while to figure out who he was. Now, most of the time, in fact, of the three stories that I'm referencing right now, every cyclist involved did have ID, contact numbers, and all that, but it was in his wallet, buried somewhere down in his panniers, or in a place that emergency services personnel wouldn't necessarily think to look. So, my advice is get something with have a card printed up with your name, blood type, any known allergies or anything like that, doctor, insurance number, emergency contact, you know what I mean. Have a few of them and like maybe say put one in your wallet, obviously. Put one if your bike has one, those little packs that go under your seat for like emergency inflation gear. And put one, usually most cyclists will have some sort of handlebar bag, whether they're riding a recumbent or an upright. Put one in there. Put it on the outside so it can be seen. If you have to, do the cheap lamination thing. Just get some clear tape and, tape that thing up to where water it should at least survive being submerged for about a minute or two and still be readable. That's about the only thing I recommend that you carry aside from on a tour. Like I said, bring that. Bring any medications you need. Now, aside from medications and obvious emergency supplies like band-aids, first aid kit, ointment, snake bite kit, really there's not much else past that. Everything else I'm about to tell you is more if you wanna. I mean, you don't have to. It's been done with or without. Really doesn't matter. My advice to a lot of you, if you're gonna do something like this, check out some things online. You saw some of the links from the last video. They're still valid. I'll put them back up here again. One thing I would have you do, get like a little cheap binder, one of those one subject college ruled things, and just keep track of preparations for you. Okay, I'm going to be here. I better order these maps. Might want to get some first aid supplies here when I get the chance. Try out that new. Keep a list of things so that you can kind of you've got one place where, okay, flip through. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was here. Just keep track of the things that you do for your upcoming trip. Now, as far as doing a trip, that can be accomplished fairly easily, even if you live in an area where getting to a national park campground area would be difficult. Now, I'm only speaking from personal experience here in the Salt Lake Valley, but if you live in a major metropolitan area, odds are a national park where you could go camping is probably farther out than you want to pedal in one day, at least right off the bat. The solution to this is fairly simple. Look in your city's phone directory and see if they have a KOA. Most KOA campgrounds have tenter, hiker, biker type sites. Pick one out and ride around put everything you're going to take with you on your bike, racks and panniers or trailers, and we'll talk about that here in just a bit. Ride around the city. If your city is one of those that has a bike trail that basically circles around the city, ride that 2 or 3 times. Put in 20, 30, 40, whatever mileage you were going to do for a day or whatever you're going to average your on-tour trip for once you finally get going. And then, as the last part of your day, even if it's just an overnight trip and then from the KOA straight home, pull in the KOA, check in, set up your gear. It's going to give you a good idea how your bike handles in city areas. You're going to know that already. How tired you're going to be at the end of the day hauling it. And it's good practice. I mean, it really is. If you're lucky enough to be in a big city but live within what you would consider a bikeable distance from your place to a national park campground or even a private campground for that matter, consider yourself lucky. Go for it, and then just flip around and come home the next day. Oh, what else was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, if you do, um, make sure you take the gear that you're going to actually use. Now, this may mean a lot. Well, I just want to try and pull the trailer with racks. You know what? Take all the gear you're going to take. So I can almost guarantee you're going to find out what stuff's going to work and what isn't. Also, make sure that when you're driving around, when you're going to do this first trip and when you're going to do your big tour, have the route planned out where you're going to roughly be. That way, if something goes wrong, your family know, okay, and check in every hour or so. And that way your family know, okay, well, he made it to here now. Now we're going to go and look, okay, we haven't heard from him in like 3 days, so let's start from here and work our way around. Keep track of that. I mean, please make those points so your family doesn't get worried about you. I mean, odds are they're probably not, but you know what? I panicked a lot when my son was gone here for about a month because I didn't hear from him. But he was doing something totally different, but the principle is the same. Your family's going to worry. So, do yourself and them the favor. I mean, if nothing for your own peace of mind, then they're not going to be haranguing you saying, "Where were you? Why didn't you call?" Make it a point, at certain points along your route, stop, get off the bike, have a beer, have a drink, do whatever. Call home, say, "Hey, Mom," or "Hi, honey," or whatever. Let them know where you're at, where you're hopefully going to be going for the next few days, or where the next phone call spot will be, and they should be able to take track of you from there. No. And I honestly think that's about all you really need to do for your own peace of mind. Anything else you do to help you get prepared for your first ride, tour, whatever, is just going to be completely optional. And that's totally fine. And we'll be right back. Okay, friends, sorry about that. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about what you should, racks or panniers. And this is really a personal preference question. I am more geared toward trailers than racks and panniers because the first time I tried it, I was loaded down with maybe 80 pounds worth of equipment and supplies, and the bike I had at the time handled funny. Now, a good touring bike should be able to, upright one basically, should be able to handle anywhere from 80 to 140 pounds and pretty much handle the same whether you were loaded or not. Now, you'll be the judge of what is, eyebrow raising. Was that supposed to happen? Or, holy shit, this thing's acting like it's got a screw loose. And, like I said, it's your personal issue, your personal preference as to whether you choose racks and panniers or a trailer. Some people's issues with trailers are the trailers don't track the way they're used to. They're used to basically the bike front wheel pointing one direction and the rear end of the bike coming this way. Well, if you've got a two-wheeled trailer, and there are several variations and brands out there, yeah, you're right. It's not going to track the same. It's going to be a little wider. It's going to be like any other car hauling, like a car hauling a trailer. You may have to swing wide just so you can get your rear tire to clear that curb, or that bollard, or that big rock. And it's okay. Get used to it. If you've never ridden with a trailer, and if you've bought one online, you're not quite sure what's going on, take it to a bike shop. And most bike shops should do this. It may cost you a small fee, but have them put it on there and adjust it. They should tell you, okay, point out any weak links. They may try and sell you a few other things, but that's the nature of the beast. Get used to just riding around. If for no other reason, if you go and do the bulk of your grocery shopping not in a bike but in a car, and you have a few dogs or animals, and you need to buy several bags of food, big bags, don't buy them when you go do the regular shopping. Come back the next day or even later that day with your bike and trailer, throw it in there. Bags of dog food, cat litter, whatever, are great items to put in a trailer so that it simulates the weight of gear. It's really awesome. You can do the same with racks and panniers. It really doesn't matter. Panniers, just for a quick definition, are not saddlebags, although saddlebags are considered that, but it's basically a bag with usually some sort of mild to light framework, or at the very least, a bar of some material on the top so that it can hook onto your rack and then this thing will hold a given volume of gear, supplies, whatever you want. Then you'll have another one on the other side. You'll have two in the front, two in the back. Some pannier systems actually do have a trunk bag. Now, I know this sounds a little silly, trunk on a bike. Well, it's in the back. It's behind you, and it's the trunk. So, go for it. But, you can do that. There's several trailers out there that are geared for pets, and if for whatever reason you decide to take your pet with you, that's fine. It's cool. Fido will love going on. I'm not saying cats wouldn't love. You may have a cat that just wants to go everywhere with you. It's been my general experience, cats don't like riding in trailers because it scares them. They don't like riding in bags because, it scares them. But you may have a cat that's just an outdoor cat and loves being with you. And you may have a dog that's a complete puss. But, there are some pet trailers that are out on the market that, with a little bit of ingenuity on your part, will hold a lot of material that you need. You could get one of those trailers that holds a big dog. And we're talking German Shepherd, Black Lab, Mastiff, big ass dogs. And there are trailers that support them. Well, if you've got one of those kind of dogs and for whatever reason your dog doesn't want to go, take his trailer when you're not pulling around, throw a bunch of gear in there. And it will hold it. Now, there's a type of bike that you may want to consider picking up, and it's not a bike so much as it's an extension to a bike. It's called an extra cycle. Now, it's basically a frame that fits onto your bike, which takes the place of the rear wheel and extends your back deck trunk area out significantly, allowing the bike to carry a much heavier load much more securely. You can go online, look at this. I'll put a link down in the comments section where you can click on it. They have them ranging from just very simple rear ends on bikes to basically seat, a backrest, footrest for someone to go along with you. You also might want to look at a cargo bike. People have successfully toured with cargo bikes, putting all their stuff in the cargo area. And maybe, depending on the cargo bike's design, front rack or rear rack companions. I encourage you to look it up online. Just type in the word cargo bike, and it should kick out enough results for you to, I like that design, but yeah, the seat's kind of, and you know what I mean, folks. Excuse me, I had to get some water there. But just what you want to take with you. Well, that depends. From a safety standpoint, we've already covered that, but let's talk about some, I wouldn't call them safety gear, but let's just call them comfort gear. Now, comfort gear runs the gamut from a folding camp chair that you can sit back, kind of stretch out and relax in. I know some people have done that in the past, and, they've toured successfully, and it's worked for them. I've also seen people take their favorite pillows, their fly fishing gear, whatever items you want to take with you. There was a gentleman here, I think back in 2007. He wrote in his journal he wasn't really taking much, but what he did take was a very small table and a camp chair, and he would take about every 4 or 5 days, he was pedaling, take a day off, catch up on all his journal entries. And I think one of the comments in his guest book, guest log, whatever you want to call it, why do that? You can go to a McDonald's and, hooch off their Wi-Fi or a city library for a few hours. And his response was actually really awesome. What he said was, I could do that, but those chairs don't necessarily work, or the table's not the right height. I know that the chair and table I'm bringing with me, I've used them, they work for me. And, folks, let's be honest, that's all you really need. What I plan to take on mine, I'll probably end up taking some form of cot because I really hate sleeping on a sleeping, even with a sleeping bag and a very thick not ground tarp, but sleeping pad. I still don't like it. Slept in cots before. It takes a bit of getting used to, but after a day or two, it's like crawling into bed. You don't notice. I plan to take a very light one. I would also like, depending on the exact route and time, I may end up taking a portable bear fence with me. I'll put a link to that in the comments section. And you may laugh about this, but there are some parts of this country where the wild animals, especially the wild or feral dogs, wolves, coyotes, bears, are going to be, but there's no real safe area for you to put your gear. But we'll get into that later. So what do you want to take? Well, that's a good question. You should take, at the very least, some spokes. About a half dozen for the drive side, half dozen for the non-drive side of the bike. And by the way, folks, drive side or non-drive side, those spokes will work for your front wheel, no problem. You probably will want to take a pair of brake pads, just one. I mean, get your pads set up beforehand, but depending on your riding style and what else, you may be using one set faster than another, and it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. Right now, we'll be right back. All right, friends, we're back. Sorry about that. We talked about spokes, and you should have them. You should also carry some duct tape. Now, I'm not suggesting that you take that big roll of duct tape that you bought for 50 cents, but depending on the kind of pump you have, and you should be taking a good sized pump, because even if you're on your normal bike, you have one of them small little turbo pumps or whatever just to get you by, which is fine. On a long tour using that thing, you're going to be, a lot of people have written, they got frustrated with it, and you'll probably be the same way. So get yourself a good quality frame pump, and if you're lucky enough to where you can wrap things around it, wrap in 2 or 3 places on it, several wraps, half dozen or whatever, of duct tape to it. Now, duct tape on the road has really only 2 uses that really stand out in the mind, but you'll figure it out as you go along. Let's say, for the sake of the argument, that in the past you had a tire fail and you used the old dollar bill trick, where you fold the dollar bill up, put it into the carcass of the tire so that you can pump it back up and the tube doesn't spread out and get damaged. You can do the same with duct tape. You just fold over 2 or 3 layers. I recommend 4, if for no other reason, to make sure that your tire is not, or your tube's not going to push out and pop. You can use it to zip tie, or temporarily close something on your rainfly if it gets damaged. If you need to, if one of your little clips break, you can tape it to there, and it's not pretty, but it'll get the job done. Next thing you want to do, you may want to think about bringing some sort of grease with you. If, like in my last video, where you had a rear cluster for the bike that was more for hilly, mountainous areas, and then you got on the flats and you want to change out, good rule of thumb while you're there, changing that thing out, see if you can take your rear end apart and just put some of that new, some grease in here. Now, what sort of containers you use? A lot of older cyclists would tell you, get a 35mm film canister, but that's not as easy to get a hold of as it used to be. Talk to anybody who's a diabetic who has their test strips in something similar to this. I put a little bit of grease in here. It should work just fine. It snaps closed. It's really good and durable. What else you bring? You should bring some tools. What type and then what, how many tools you should bring is totally up to you. If you think you're going to have to change out your rear end, bring the little socket looking thing, and I'll put a picture up here about it, that fits the cluster you're changing out and the one that you're going to put it in its place. And get a not a chain breaker, but a freewheel cassette remover tool. It's like a wrench. It's got a hole in one end specifically for that socket thing I was telling you about. And just bring some tools for general maintenance. And you'll know what you'll need, and you should be fine. Should you bring spare tires or not? If you're riding a bike that accepts folded tires, that's fine. Go ahead and bring it. If not, don't try and turn the tire to where it will pack smaller. I've heard of this happening, although I've never actually witnessed it, where if the wire isn't allowed to periodically every couple of days just to bounce out and be normal. It will take a set, and you'll definitely know as you're going down that the wheel's going to kind of go thud, 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 thud. It's much better just to get a bike, or put a couple of tires. Even if you're only taking one extra, put it on the back of the bike, or if you're bringing a trailer, put it on there. Now, that advice holds true for every type of bike out there, from recumbent to upright. For recumbents, you may have a slightly easier time of it. I don't know the average size of most bike trailers. I would hazard a guess that they are between 16 to 20 inches, and most recumbents have wheels that are around 20. You may have a 20-inch front tire, but you got that big old 700C tire in the back. Okay. For some where the front tires and the rear tire are the same size, and your trailer happens to be the same size, well, guess what just happened? You bring, let's just say, 2 extra tires, you put them on the trailer, and your front ones or whatever is looking kind of ratty, but it's still got life in it. Well, guess what? You can put that in the back, and should something happen to one of your trailer tires, boom, you got a replacement. Simple. Okay. Another thing you might want to consider bringing along, definitely bring some chain lube. That has been an issue that has cropped up a couple of times. And before you take off, if you can, I can't suggest this strongly enough, bring some chain lube and get a brand new chain before you take off. If possible, put about 100 miles on the chain before you actually take your trip. That way it's used to your bike, the derailleur system that you've got. You should be okay. On to what other things you should probably bring. I would say a minimum 2 to 3 days worth of socks. I usually wear mine twice, for 2 days, and change them out and clean them out. And some people are like, oh, you wear the same socks 2 days in a row. Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of stupid to change socks constantly when the only thing you've done is put your shoes on, go out, got in the mail, and come back in. Why not wear them 2 days? Biking, it's the same reason. Yeah, they're going to sweat and they're going to stink, but after a few weeks of being on the trail, depending on how long your tour is, you'll find rapidly that when you do sweat, most of the toxins have been flushed out of your body already, and it's just sweat. It's just water trying to keep you cool. What kind of underwear? I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I want to say you should get cycling-specific underwear, but I've had a chance to try some of those out, and even while cycling, they didn't fit me right, and maybe they were designed with the seams in the wrong area, because if a seam's in the wrong area, you're going to know it. It's going to chafe and it's going to irritate. You should at least bring one pair of long pants, and this next one is going to be an option for you. Bring some shoes so that you can walk around town. If you've got the kind of shoes you can pedal in and walk around, that's great. But if you don't, and if you're willing to take the other shoes, it's going to make walking around a small town, exploring the sights, so much more fun for you. I mean, it really is. So please go ahead and do it. As far as shirts go, I'd say get 2 or 3 t-shirts, some sunscreen. That's always a plus. Some first aid ointment. You might want to hit about deep heating rub. There's Icy Hot, Bengay, there's Tiger Balm. A word of warning with Tiger Balm, though, that stuff is extremely potent. Don't get it anywhere above your neckline. If it gets even right here, there have been people who have been bawling their eyes out. It is so strong. But use that. What else can I tell you about here? Oh yeah, when you are pedaling along, even though it's something you may not think about, make sure you put some sunscreen on your feet if you're wearing sandals when you're pedaling and you're not wearing socks. Make sure you get that sunscreen all over. If you go on to crazyguyonabike.com, you're going to see a lot of those guys with biker tans. You'll be able to tell what kind of glove or sandal they're wearing just by the tan lines in their feet. And although, that, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of tan lines, especially on women. But let's face it, if I can look at your hand and tell you, oh, you're wearing those new Keystone gloves, that's a bit much. You should get something on for your neck. It doesn't need to be a cooling cloth or anything like that, but you should have something along those lines. A hat, or at the very least a helmet that will allow that has some sort of visor to kind of keep the sun off your ears and off your neck and your head. A sleeping bag, a sleeping pad is one of those options that's totally up to you. Like I said, I plan to bring one and a cot. You may be able to get away with it. A tent or a hammock. People have successfully bike toured with hammocks and sleeping bags. It's been done a lot. The brand that I've heard recommended the most is a Hennessy hammock. I'll see if I can post a link to that in the description section. Covered tents. You should bring a mess kit and some sort of personal stove thing if you're going to be cooking. If you're not and you're going to be eating out a lot, that's fine. Or if you just want to eat cold food, that's okay. I would like to have a hot meal every now and again. Even if I've been pedaling all day, I would still take the time to cook myself something hot to eat aside from, you know, ramen noodles or mac and cheese, and something else just so I add different variety. But I do plan to, eat out, cook my own food as much as possible for the money issue. Now, mess kits and all that, go to any outdoor supply store or, outdoor store and they should be able to help you out just fine. I'm sorry it's a little dark here, folks, but it's getting kind of late in the day and there's some cloud cover rolling in. So let me see if I can get a bit more light. Oh, well, that's a little better at any rate. But other than that, I really can't give you much more in terms of things you should need. You should bring a notebook, if nothing else, so you can. Okay, today I got up from camp, did my dish, cooked some food, cleaned up, got on the road at 7:35, went for 3 hours, had to wait for it, and you get the idea. You can use a laptop. I don't recommend that you bring a really fancy laptop. Try and find one. Maybe if you can go to a thrift store or something, or someplace that sells laptops. Maybe they've got some older ones. All you really need is something to update your contact. Do a web journal or something you get comfortable with. Something I'm planning to do. I plan to bring a laptop that will, at the very least, have a USB port and a CD burner on it, and a small stack of CDs. And then, after I fill one up, to home said, "Here, put this in a safe." Send it to my wife. Said, "Here, honey, put this in a safe place." Um, I plan to bring one of these little Altoid tin chargers. Now you can go to Instructables, and I'll put a link to that place, and I'll try and put up the link for the Instructable I'm telling you about. But it basically takes either three AAA's, two AA's, or a 9-volt battery with a USB cord so you can plug in and charge up your phone, your iPod. I mean, let's face it, a 9-volt battery too isn't going to weigh much. But if you want to bring the charger for your phone or your iPod or whatever, that can take up a lot of space. This little tin's about that big, and you know how big an Altoids tin is. So, um, really, other than that, uh, just common sense, folks. That's really all I can tell you. Think about it. Are you going to be able to use this on the trail or not? Okay. Um, Next video we're going to go into a bit more depth regarding trailers. There were as I was getting ready to put this together, some facts were brought to my attention that, were a little surprising. So it'll be a few more days. Let me work out some of the kinks and the bugs. And, this is Good Music Fan, the Rabid Cyclist, saying, look over your left shoulder, be safe on the road, and God is bless. Thank you.